USA Ultimate is proud to present the 2013 USA Ultimate National Championship. Semifinals Saturday here in men's semifinal number 1. It's Seattle's Sockeye and Boston Ironside from Frisco ISD Memorial Stadium on a beautiful evening in Frisco, Texas. A look at our bracket. Here is Seattle and Boston, vie for a trip to the championship tomorrow. That'll be against either Revolver out of San Francisco or Johnny Bravo out of Denver. So glad to have you with us here in Frisco. Mike Cousins and former Wake Forest Ultimate captain Evan Lepler. A look at these two teams. We just saw the bracket. Neither of them a top 4 seed, and both teams here in this matchup, both Seattle and Boston, have had up and down seasons.
Well, in the other semifinal, San Francisco and Denver, that we'll see later, that's the 1 and the 4. It was chalk in that half of the bracket. But on the other side, the 6 and the 7 upset the 3 and the 2. The defending champion double wide knocked out by Johnny Bravo yesterday after Boston beat him in pool play. Seattle Sockeye getting past GOAT, a disappointment for the team from Toronto, creates a really interesting first semifinal today.
Well, we'll take a closer look first at Seattle Sockeye, a team formed in 2000 under head coach Roger Kraft. 5-0 in their regionals and riding a good streak coming into this game. And they're going to look at Tim Garrett in this game to really drive them. A guy who's got championship experience under his belt, winning it all last year with Austin's double wide.
Yeah, well, where Garrett goes, championships usually follow. The 2006 Callahan Award winner led University of Florida to a championship his final year playing for Florida. He's been a huge member of the D-line, a guy who will pick up the disc after a turnover, and it usually leads to a score for Sockeye.
Josh McCarthy has proved to be a great influence on this Ironside club. The runner-up in the U.S. Open to San Francisco's Revolver. They'll play later on tonight. And Ironside will look for an all-around great game from George Stubbs.
Boston's been a perennial contender as well, but Boston hasn't celebrated a championship since 1999. George Stubbs might be the guy to help them win a championship this year. Like Tim Garrett, he won the Callahan back in a few years ago for Harvard, and he's a key player on this really stacked Ironside team that has its sights set on a title.
Opening poll coming up, Seattle and Boston. We get going from Frisco in a moment. USA Ultimate, the national governing body for the sport of Ultimate in the United States. To find out more about the sport of Ultimate or where to play in your community, visit www.usaultimate.org. Back to Frisco, a look at our starting lineups. First for Seattle Sockeye. Along their cutting line, you get a look at the action there, and the handlers Lennon, Kosedner, and Holt. The handlers for Seattle under head coach Roger Kraft, coming in taking on Boston Ironside under the advisory of Josh McCarthy. George Stubbs, the former Callahan Award winner, the player that we're going to keep our eye on perhaps the most, but this is a very talented line here for Boston.
Yeah, both these teams have a bunch of stars. It's going to be interesting to see how they match up throughout the first half.
Well, Evan, we welcome, obviously, many Ultimate fans to the broadcast here tonight. But if you're new to Ultimate, what you need to know, 7-on-7. Halftime comes at 8. No clock to determine the break. And it's a self-officiated game, very unique compared to most other major sports.
Once a player catches a disc, you set a pivot foot immediately, and you have 10 seconds to get rid of it. The stall count created by the marker. Ironside will be in the blue, Sockeye in the red. Now these are two teams that are used to being in this spot. For Boston Ironside, it's the 6th straight year that they've been in the semifinals of nationals. Sockeye was actually knocked out in a surprise upset last year by Ring of Fire from Raleigh. But back in the semis this year, two really great Ultimate towns, and here we go. Mike mentioned in the Open that these teams have had up and down seasons. You know, as recently as the last weekend of August, the first weekend of September, both these teams were really struggling. You know, at the Pro Flight finale in Davis, the final competition with all the top teams, these two clubs, Sockeye and Ironside, went a combined 4-9, and yet here they are in the semis.
Alex Capinos pulls in the huck as Ironside gets on the board first. A 1-0 lead for Boston. Danny Clark the score.
Well, names that you got to know when it comes to the deep game for Ironside. Danny Clark and Peter Pryl, both of them very valiant players. Alex Capinos as well. They complement George Stubbs and Josh Marquette delightfully. And just a calm little dump and swing after the deep shot. And a good start for Boston.
There's a lot to look forward to, both in this men's semifinal and the one to come later tonight. I mean, you look at what we saw through the mixed semifinal, through the women's semifinal. We've seen some greatest attempts. We've seen a Callahan, and who knows what lies ahead for the rest of the evening.
Danny Clark had one of the highlight plays at the U.S. Open, going over the top of one of the best defenders in the game of Ultimate, Ring of Fire's Ken Porter. An ultimate posterization, if you will. Clark, a veteran, 32 years old, but still as sharp as ever. And now we'll see the Seattle Sockeye offense. There's Clark looking on. Josh McCarthy on the bottom of your screen, backpedaling off the field. Josh McCarthy was a pretty good player himself. First with Ring of Fire, then with Boston, after he played collegiately at Duke. Josh McCarthy wanted everybody to know that Boston Ironside today wearing a lot of pink on the field. Pink armbands, some pink shoelaces. Breast cancer has touched a lot of people on the Ironside roster. And thus they are honoring them today with the pink wristbands.
Interesting here for Sockeye as they get started is that they're going to be going right into the sun. As the sun sets down toward the end zone that they're traveling to. Deed away on the attempt toward the end zone. A leap and a stop from Jack Hatchett.
Well, the first turnover of the game. These are two teams that, if all things are clicking properly, there should not be that many turnovers. And the defensive lines know that opportunities to force turnovers will be limited. Rusty Ingold Smith picks up the disc. And Russell Wallach, one of their defensive captains, takes the first throw. This is Brandon Malachek, a primary D-line handler. Something Josh McCarthy was not pleased with the past couple days was Boston's ability to convert turnovers into scores. The D-line was stagnant at times yesterday. You know, Boston was threatened by Columbus Mad Cow in their pre-quarter matchup, which really was a big surprise.
That was a very close game.
They played better in the quarterfinal win against Chain Lightning from Atlanta.
And a turn for Boston. It goes back to a short field for Seattle Sockeye.
And he's in.
Ruled in. This may come back, though. Looked like a foul on the throw.
What call are we coming?
Travel call, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that will not come back. That'll stand. Kasednar with a nice backhand for the Sockeye score. A missed opportunity here for Boston. They got the turn on a nice D near the end zone, but gave it away pretty quickly. And that's Adam Holtz, 31-year-old cutter on the O-line for Seattle.
So tied 1-1 here in the early going between Sockeye and Boston Ironside. And it is a big weekend here in Frisco for the sport of Ultimate. And members of the Ultimate Hall of Fame here in attendance as well. And it's now our pleasure to be joined by Dan Stork-Roddick, a member of the class of 2004. Welcome up to the booth. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thanks a lot. This is really thrilling.
So you were such an instrumental part of this game growing at the college level, playing at Rutgers from 1972 to 1976, in a very dominant time for Rutgers then, but also part of the first collegiate game between Rutgers and Princeton. Obviously, the game played in a casual sense on many levels, but when it was formalized like that, how did it come to be?
Well, that first game, we really didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, it was kind of an analogy of the first Rutgers and Princeton football game, same place, 103 years to the day on the same piece of ground. And we thought it was almost kind of a joke almost to have it that day, that place, that time. And it was huge. The students came out and it just blew up. We were amazed.
1-1, Boston and Seattle. We're joined by Dan Stork-Roddick. And so you got that nickname, how exactly?
The crowd started chanting it. I mean, I'm tall and skinny, and I guess I look like a stork. It's kind of stuck.
So an endearing nickname.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
When you watch the best teams in the country here in 2013, what do you think most about?
Well, first of all, what studs they are. I mean, really, the athleticism that has come into the game is just amazing. I mean, I've had an opportunity to throw with some of the top women players in the game, and man, anything you might think about sex difference in terms of performance in disc sports, I mean, I don't see any. I mean, they just are amazing, particularly the women.
Every year at Club Nationals, a new Hall of Fame class is inducted. Dan, you were part of the inaugural Hall of Fame class. What do you think of this year's class of Hall of Famers?
Well, as I said to somebody, now they've really got people who are great at ultimate. We were great at being early. You know, I mean, we were there when the doors opened, but now it's getting so difficult to sort out all of the compelling candidates. That's the biggest challenge, because it's just so many quality people.
Well, Dan Stork-Roddick, a member of the Ultimate Hall of Fame class of 2004, we thank you for joining us. An absolute pleasure to talk to you and to get to hear your insights on a sport that continues to grow.
Hey, great to be up here with you, and we're so excited about your part of this. I mean, that's a real thrill for us.
Thank you very much. Dan Stork-Roddick from the class of 2004, and many members of the Ultimate Hall of Fame here on hand in Frisco, Texas this weekend. An injury timeout as Seattle Sockeye has Jacob Spidell go down. Well, Evan, this is a big weekend in the sport of Ultimate, the culmination of the inaugural Triple Crown Tour. And the event moves this year back to Texas. Sixth time it's been held here. The first time in 13 years that it's not down on the beach in Sarasota, Florida. So you move away from the shoreline. But this has been a great setting here in Texas.
You know, there are no automatic bids to get here. The defending champ still needs to work to get back here. The semifinalists from last year, members of the Pro Flight, still need to battle their way through regionals to return to nationals. So each of these teams has worked hard all season long. The season is starting even earlier now with the top-class U.S. Open tournament really getting the season underway in early July. Certainly hope Jacob Spidell is okay. He was down in the field for a while, hobbled off. Ironside trying to hold serve here.
George Stubbs gives it away to Josh Marquette and gets it right back. Stubbs, always easy to recognize. Don't see him on the field without the hat on.
Or the beard.
Former Callahan Award winner a couple of years ago at Harvard. And we talked earlier today about young players. How about his brother?
Yeah, his younger brother, a freshman at Harvard this year, and played for Chain Lightning, and an impactful member of their D-line, John Stubbs.
All of 19 years old. And Ironside holds serves as they go to the end zone for Jim Foster.
And we knew it would be a one Stubbs in the semifinal because the two Stubbs went head-to-head in the quarterfinal, with Ironside defeating Atlanta's Chain Lightning.
The end zone for Jim Foster and the Ironside score. That's Ironside 2, Sockeye 1.
Now, momentum really slowed for these two teams. Big build-up coming into that game, but the injury timeout for Jacob Spidell slowed down that point. And now we'll see here as Seattle goes back on offense how they respond with what hopefully won't be a loss of a player, but certainly they hope that they're going to get a big part of their offense back.
Well, these teams are both very, very deep. So one player should not be a crippling force. Boston getting ready to pull, not the favorite, at least in terms of seed in the C pool, but upset double wide. Use upset in quotations because Boston has had some great games with Ironside in the past to win that C pool. Also defeating Ring of Fire from Raleigh and Santa Barbara Condors on Thursday. Then Columbus Mad Cow and Atlanta Chain Lightning dispatched by Boston.
Boston pulls, and Teddy Brower Jarris lets it fly with the right hand.
And, you know, just because they're the 6th seed, I don't think anybody's really surprised that Boston Ironside is here in the semifinals. Yeah, they had a bit of an up and down season, struggling out in Davis. Bunch of close losses mixed in, and I think if nothing else, people might have been a little down on Boston coming in just because they didn't win their region. You know, Goat from Toronto was one of the best teams all regular season long, just did not bring it here in Frisco, and Goat eliminated before the quarters. A long hammer try.
To the end zone, and the catch is made. Excitement for Sockeye as they tie things at 2. And the catch from Phil Murray.
That's an impressive hammer and an even better catch. Going up against one of the defensive captains, Russell Wallach.
And that got tipped. I think there was double contact there. Wallach got it first, but then Murray was able to swipe it away.
Great concentration, but you're right. Wallach has to be really upset with himself. He had a chance for the D. Had his hand right there. And Wallach and Murray is going to be a fun matchup to watch. You know, Wallach knows that defensive opportunities are few and far between, but he had one right there, and he tipped it into Murray's hand. And he knew it, too.
Sorry.
So now after the score, it's Sockeye set to pull.
You're hearing him?
And Ironside will go into the sun. Do you think that's a big factor here with the sun setting into their drive?
It's hard to tell how big of a factor it actually is. Certainly a small one. We'll see how long it lingers. You can see how long the shadows are in the field. That's how close the sun is to the horizon.
Well, everybody not wearing a hat on Boston, which is 5 players, the only 2 wearing one, George Stubbs and Alex Cooper, had their hands shielding their eyes as they stood on the goal line.
Over the course of the season, I have been pretty impressed by the consistency of the Boston offensive line, and that most of the pieces are interchangeable. You know, they have primary handlers and cutters, but basically anybody on their O-line could go deep, and anybody on their O-line could send it deep. They play fairly smart, and they do have the athletes to create a turnover if they give it away, the rare instances when they do.
This is here at 1. He's not contested. Yeah.
It's not contested? Or is
Danny, GS!
No. All right, we're here at 1. Foul and a pick.
foul and a pick?
Cooper has it for Boston. Gives it away to Peter Pryl.
This is Matt Rebholz, one of the captains, one of the Hodag greats, and an easy score.
They play the dump and swing game. Danny Clark to the far side edge. 3-2 Boston leads.
And you know, this is why stats can only tell you so much. That's Danny Clark's second goal. And has he been important? Yes, but has he been the difference maker in the game so far? Not exactly. He's had 2 relatively easy catches in the end zone. Miscommunication defensively there for Sockeye. We talked about Tim Garrett right at the top, number 27 in red. The primary handler for Sockey's defensive line. He hasn't had a chance to pick up the disc yet and show off those handling skills.
(3-2) Boston in the lead here, first half. Here's a look around what's been going on in the men's division.
Yeah, this is really the main storylines from Thursday in pool play. You know, Toronto's GOAT came in as the number 2 seed, just didn't perform up to expectations. Boston Ironside, you know, knocking off defending champion Austin Double Wide. And, you know, San Francisco and Denver sort of quietly going about their business. We'll see those 2 teams just littered with, you know, players who have played for both teams in the past 5-10 years. Bart Watson, a key transaction going from San Francisco to Denver. You know, a lot of the old Colorado Mama Bird guys who played for Boulder, Colorado College, now playing in San Francisco for Revolver, guys like Bo Kittredge and Martin Cochran. So it's really going to be fun to see those guys go head-to-head, clearly very familiar with each other.
Out of the brick, Seattle takes over. A lot of people like Austin Double Wide coming into this tournament. At the U.S. Open, they were undermanned, had about 18 players on their roster. And here at full strength, you know, playing a full season with the addition of those 2 Pittsburgh champions, Tyler DiGirolamo, Alex Thorne. What did you make of them being knocked out before this round?
I thought Johnny Bravo from Denver played an unbelievable game in the quarterfinals. And, you know, it was a disappointing finish, though, for Austin. They're certainly disappointed. Guys like Kirk Gibson and Mike Natenberg, you know, had expectations to repeat and get back to the championship game. The biggest piece they lost from last year, though, Tim Garrett, who played double wide last year with a bunch of the Florida guys. It was unclear whether Garrett would even play club this year. For a while, it was reported that he wouldn't play. He's become a father, living and working in Seattle, but joined Sockeye for this 2013 run. And as we said in the Open, you know, Garrett's a winner.
Over here. There's a I think was there a call over here? Yes. Because there was a travel.
There's a way of making things look effortless.
So let's see what's going on over there. Was it travel? So there we go. Okay. All right, so.
Coming one.
Travel call, so the disc goes back to the previous throw for Sockeye.
One of the Sockeye captains, Danny Karlinski, with the disc. Sockeye really a conglomeration of college players from all over. Karlinski played at UC Santa Cruz, shooting it deep.
Deep look, Sockeye for the score. We're even at 3 as they go back down the field. So far, both teams pretty evenly matched here, 6 goals in.
And, you know, both teams have been fairly conservative too, Mike. We haven't seen a lot of dangerous 50-50 deep shots. You know, they've picked their spots well, and not much that Boston can do about that.
Phil Murray finds pay dirt once again for Sockeye.
And again, he beat Wallach deep. So really only one turnover for each team so far, and other than that, we're on serve. Sockeye getting some direction from their coach, Roger Crafts. It's the first year that Sockey's had a coach. Roger Crafts, a veteran with Sockeye, big part of the Sockeye championship teams from the middle 2000s. Seattle won 3 out of 4 years from 2004 to 2007. Seattle did have somewhat of an injury-plagued season. A bunch of players were sidelined over the course of the summer and into the fall, but clearly the pieces that they've put together.
Stubbs flick Huck looking deep at Danny Clark. A lot of angling for that. The disc ultimately knocked away by Exton Titcomb, but a foul call.
All right, guys. So we have foul, contest, come to me, I rule, or contest goes back. What do you want to do? Okay, the call is foul, come to me. Yes, your hand is on his hand. That's a foul. This is at 77. The arms are here, no foul. Here's not okay.
The observers, not quite referees, but they will mediate disputes on the field.
Yeah, nope.
And Stephen Hubbard, the observer down there, did a nice job of explaining to the player to his options.
We'll go with the check. Yep. So we'll go with a tap.
If he had just contested it and they didn't go to the observer, it would have gone back to the original thrower. That's about a 40 or 50-yard difference. Instead, Clark will keep it on the deep shot.
He takes it out, brings it out, and Josh Marquette drops an easy throw that could have led to a score. And now it turns Sockeye in a furious charge. Sockeye, 2 options down the field, and it's D'd away. Danny Clark doing it at both ends. Here's a foul call.
Let's take a look. Clark was riding him a little bit.
There is hand-hand contact there.
He went up straight and got the disc.
The disc will stay with Sockeye.
No contest on the foul. Certainly contact en route. This would be the first break. And a pick was called.
Pick called.
Unlike basketball, picks are illegal in Ultimate.
So the disc comes back to the thrower, Sam Harkness.
And you do tend to see a lot of picks near the end zone when all 14 players in the field are clumped up closer together.
There we go.
Creating more opportunity to get in each other's way.
Harkness set to go. Stubbs checks it in. Same throw, different result. Too long, looking for Frank Devin Barrett.
And looking for the around backhand. Just want a little more float there. A little too much tilt on the disc when he released, and really no chance.
Jacob Taylor puts it in the air. And Reed Koss to get the D.
Reed Koss, one of the leaders in Ds throughout the tournament.
He'll burn a timeout.
And he'll take a timeout. Koss, a dynamic player, played collegiately at Western Washington, and you know, he's an interchangeable guy from the defensive line and the offensive line. Reed Koss playing big defense here, trying to pick up the first break of the game.
3-3 first half, evenly played so far. Danny Clark has been a big impact for Boston Ironside.
Well, he's had a couple goals. That's a nice snag by Alex Capinos near the goal line. Quick reset, and then really an easy, obvious catch and cut for Clark. And then again, Marquette did most of the work. Clark with nice awareness to get his feet in the end zone. It's the first point of contact where he lands. If he caught the disc on the goal line with 1 foot in and 1 foot out, it would not be in the end zone. That's called a straddle. If he caught it with 1 foot down in the end zone, the other foot up in the air, that would be a score even if his second foot landed outside the end zone.
So 2 early goals for Danny Clark in a 3-3 game.
And this is an interesting spot. This is the Boston offensive line talking about how important this defensive possession is right here after Reed Koss and Sockey's timeout. Really nice crowd has come out here to the semifinal Saturday action in Frisco.
Carson set to get it in. Peter Pryl the mark for Boston. They're forcing home.
It's a foul away from the disc and looks like no contest.
Foul call. Uncontested.
Not far from the disc, just across midfield. The 2 players closest to the disc.
Crossfield saved there by Duncan Lynn. Sliding grab to keep the possession alive. And it goes back to Reed Koss. Couple smooth catches here. Maybe a little miscommunication for Sockeye, but they move swiftly and they find the end zone. So Sockeye punches it in to Frank Devin Barrett. You see a couple of the catches along that possession. It looked like the intended receiver didn't make the catch, but somebody was there to get it. And there are a couple sliding grabs to keep that possession alive. In the end, they get what they want, but it wasn't always pretty.
It's all about valuing the disc. If you're willing to give up your body, not exactly right in the flow of the offense, but it worked out for Seattle.
And it's the first lead for Seattle as well. You're going up 4-3 over Boston, and a trip to the finals tomorrow evening on the line. They'll take on either Revolver out of San Francisco or Johnny Bravo out of Denver, and that game will come your way next here from Frisco.
Sockeye talks about swimming upstream. Well, that's a upwind battle, uphill battle on the defensive line coming up with a break. There's Adam Simon.
Chicken the ball for Sockeye.
They call him Chicken. Played for Colorado's Mama Bird in college. Another one of those guys that you qualify as a defensive handler, where he's athletic enough to be an impact defender, but he'll be a key guy picking up the disc off a turn. If there's a turn, Boston begins from the brick mark after the out-of-bounds pull.
Matt Rebholz starts the possession. Far sideline, Josh Marquette. Taylor over to Stubbs. He wants to throw deep and does. One-on-one matchup at the goal line. Oh, did he get it? Alex Capinos. And the score for Ironside. Capinos kept it alive, and Alex Cooper chased it down and crossed the goal line with the disc in his hands.
Capinos misplayed this first time. Well-timed defense. He got a fingertip on it. Great concentration. The pancake right on the edge of the goal line. And a nice little calm flip to Alex Cooper running with the play. And while he took off outside the end zone, he landed for the score.
George Stubbs is going to make that flick huck look easy. Speaking from experience, I'm sure you can say that it's not all that simple.
It's a tough throw, but he makes it look really easy, as you said. It is easy for him, quite frankly. You know, that's when an offensive player has a step, a good, confident thrower feels pretty good about just sending it to space. 20-yard end zone, a lot of room to work with down the field. And it's real fun to be a handler, especially with a strong flick, and you just let your playmakers make plays.
If you're trying to defend George Stubbs, do you strike your call a little bit more often than usual to try and block that flick?
you certainly don't want him to beat you by throwing it deep. So yeah, that is something that Sockeye will try to do by a strike call. That's usually called from the sidelines. When a player is going deep, the sidelines yell strike, they change the force for a second or so to try to prevent that deep shot down the field.
Sockeye with a quick possession up the near sideline. Now just 10 yards out, disc in the hands of Matt Rader.
Sockeye's offense very fundamentally sound until now.
On the turn, pass intended for Phil Murray, who's already got a couple of goals here in this game.
That throw is just rushed a little bit.
An opportunity here for Boston to get a break. This is exactly what Josh McCarthy was talking to us about yesterday. How will their DO be? How will their defensive line do when trying to score?
And this is a huge point because while it may look like the game is tied, actually Seattle is up a break right here. So in order to get back on serve, Boston needs to score. Otherwise, Seattle, if it stayed on serve the rest of the half, would be up 8-7 at the half and then receive to start the second half. And ultimate, when it comes down to it, even at the high level, it's pretty simple. In order to win, your defense needs to break your opponent's offense more than your offense gets broken. You rely on your offense to be consistent. And if your defense can, get 2, 3, 4 breaks in a game, you're probably feeling pretty good.
This is Brandon Malachek. He's smart. I think he's the only guy out there who's got sunglasses on.
That's his look, his glasses, and his headband.
Gotcha.
Malachek, another Wisconsin guy.
Rusty Ingold Smith, cross field for Malachek.
And he'll call the timeout.
Timeout, Boston.
So you realize how important a possession it is. They're about 12 yards from the front of the end zone, which is a decent spot to be. Frankly, I'd rather be 12 yards from the end zone than 4 yards from the end zone sometimes because it gives you a lot more room to work with. And as we've said before, the good teams, the confident teams, are not afraid to play backwards near the end zone.
Here's Josh McCarthy, head coach of Ironside, with some words of advice. We want to make sure that you're with us tomorrow for the USA Ultimate Mixed Championship game, Sunday, noon Eastern. That's 11 a.m. Central Time, right here on ESPN3. Your home for the 2013 USA Ultimate National Championships. It'll be Minneapolis and San Francisco in the mixed final to kick off what will be another great day of Ultimate here in Frisco.
It'll be a triple header tomorrow. Minneapolis Dragon Thrust and San Francisco Polar Bears, both knocking off teams from Beantown to get to the finals. We had an opportunity for an all-Boston mixed final, and now Boston Ironside, Boston's lone hope to play on Sunday here in Frisco.
Well, if the Red Sox go to a Game 7, those two teams won't have to worry about missing it.
That is very true.
Well-placed timeout for Josh McCarthy and Ironside. See if his D can score. That pass goes over the head of Seth Reinhart and out of bounds.
Sockeye did a nice job there with a confusing defense. Some switches at the last minute. And by the time Ironside saw the opening, it was too late. The stall count was high, and the throw was forced out the back. A missed opportunity for Boston.
And that problem lingers still for McCarthy.
They've had a couple chances to break.
Open space for Seattle. Sakai gets the hook ahead to Matt Rader. Now he goes end zone. And a Sky. We got a score for Seattle. Quick right off the turn and a few passes later. Sakai 5-4.
Nate Castine. A phenomenal grab at the end zone on the secondary break. Rader put it up, and Castine absorbed the contact. Give him a free throw and the basket.
Christian Foster comes over. He trails and gets a little bit of time to catch up, but his right arm nearly dislodges the right arm of Castine.
We show a graphic every once in a while that says Ultimate is a non-contact game.
Not always.
Not always. Just like basketball is a non-contact sport. It can get pretty physical. It was really interesting what Seattle was doing to warm up. Right before the first 7 took the line near the end zone, they were doing drills across the field, working on bumping each other, on making cuts while absorbing bumps, shoulder to shoulder, you know, little elbows as well. You need to be comfortable with that physical play. Seattle knew that Boston would be physical, and so far, Seattle's handled it well.
While there are a lot of stoppages for picks, we mentioned this earlier in the mixed and women's semifinals, but the addition of the contact call recently has been a big part of the game to keep the flow going.
Now you can call a foul and get the stall count set back to 0, but the play doesn't stop if you say contact. Players who aren't familiar with that rule, it's in addition to the 11th edition of the USA Ultimate Rulebook. When you're throwing and you're bumped and the stall counts at 6, if you call foul, then everybody on the field stops. If you call contact, the stall count can still reset to 0 and the play continues, so you can keep your offensive flow, which is really important for most offenses in Ultimate.
Prowl holds the disc. Vertstack set up for Ironside, about 20 yards out from the end zone. Here's Stubbs. Gets it back to Clark. Lefty flick. He goes end zone for Prowl.
May have been a pick.
We'll see what the call is.
Hard to explain why he was that wide open. It was good timing on the cut. But in the middle of the field, the condensed stack, sort of a bunch stack, may have led to a pick. Stubbs with a good little dump, looking for the swing, and you could see the good timing on the cut, but it was Garrett trying to stay with Prowl, who got screened. He still had a step, though, and he still got the score.
Oh, the footwork, fantastic there from Peter Prowl. They go right back to the same spot. Usually when you see somebody that wide open, it is going to be a pick. But he catches the disc one side, feet on the other to even things up at 5.
Footwork, he could have come down standing straight up, but then he wouldn't have been in the end zone. So you take a little contact and you finish the score. Peter Prowl from Connecticut went to Middlebury, and a really solid offensive player. You know, Ironside just has the luxury. They could put out a line, you know, everybody 6'3" and bigger. I mean, it's one of the bigger teams at Nationals. So that's something that Seattle's had to know was coming and prepared for. You know, Tim Garrett, one of the best players in the world, but he's only 5'10", and it's a tough challenge for him to guard a 6'3" guy who's as athletic as Peter Prowl.
Ironside does present that unique challenge of having 15 players on its roster that are 6 feet or taller. And there's a fantastic shot from the end zone camera right now as Ironside gets set to pull. That's what they're looking into as they go down the field, hence everybody covering their eyes as they look up that direction.
It's certainly a tough time of day. Looks like they just turned on the lights, so when the sun goes down, the field obviously will stay illuminated. Second semifinal scheduled for 8 o'clock local time, 9 o'clock Eastern.
Good call. Spencer Wallace with the disc for Sockeye.
Spencer Wallace dumps back to Chris Kusedner. Layout try on the D for Will Neff. Stays with Seattle.
Neff didn't know where it was. It was a sensational effort, but he couldn't come up with it.
Well, Evan, this game has been fundamentally sound for both sides, but it's yet to really develop a flow with the high volume of picks that have been called.
There's no question. Hasn't been a dispirited game by any means, just a bunch of stoppages. Injury to Spidell slowed things down early. Hope he's all right. Don't believe he's been back on the field since he went hobbling off in the second or third point.
Tight man-to-man defense.
One thing Seattle has done is make some tough catches when the throws haven't been right on the money. Seattle still made the play.
Sideline of the end zone, and a travel call on the throw.
And it's waved off.
So Sockeye gets the score. Adam Holt tiptoes the sideline to make it 6-5 Seattle.
And Allie Lennon a little fortunate here because he rushed this throw near the goal line. He could have set his feet a little bit. And it looked like he did hold that left pivot foot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it didn't really look like there was movement on it. He was taking steps which he's legally allowed with his momentum, and he did hold that left foot.
But he certainly wasn't, 100% balanced when he let this go. So when I mean he rushed it, throw probably would have been there in another beat, and it was nearly hand blocked by the very alert Miles Montgomery Butler. Number 14 nearly got the no-look hand block, which doesn't happen every day. The Sockeye still up a break. Important for Boston to score here and keep it close.
Is that coconut water?
Was it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that.
Chicken to pull for Sockeye.
If it's good for them, it's got to be good for us, right?
You would think so. Big surprises in Pool B on Thursday. It started with Sub-Zero just thrashing Goat. And that was the biggest first surprise of the day. Sockeye and Goat played a reasonably tight game, but Sockeye was in control in the second half. Danny Clark takes a lick.
It's going to be more than a contact call there as Clark goes down.
Adam Simon, another veteran guarding Clark.
That appeared to be purely incidental.
Not contesting a foul. The foul was actually called. No contest. A foul call. Yeah, we know. Okay. 21.
Danny Clark with the disc for Ironside.
Well, he went down. It didn't look as bad as it did live. Simon was just sort of sliding and holding his territory. The nice flick break. Taylor to Marquette. Nice fake by Marquette. Marquette in the end zone being guarded by one of the Sockeye captains, Tyler Kinley, but they go right up line, and then Marquette.
Rebholz, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, off the straddle to his right, and Marquette evens things 6-6.
Josh Marquette was part of the USA World Games team, but not as a player, despite the fact that he's a fine player and one of the key guys on this high-level Ironside team. Now, he was the athletic trainer for the USA World Games team that took home the gold medal in Columbia. Chatted with the head coach of the USA team and Scandal head coach Alex Gesquier about Josh Marquette. He said just like anybody else, he applied for the job and stressed that he was, you know, a competitive player and would have a pretty good understanding of what the USA players were going through if there was an injury. And USA did sustain a couple injuries, tweaks. Marquette got him back on the field, and you know, it's pretty cool that he witnessed the international flavor of the game from a different perspective, but yet here he is, one of the key players on a squad that is just in the mix for the national championship.
Tomorrow will be Championship Sunday here at the USA Ultimate National Championships. And San Francisco's Fury picking up a 15-7 win over Austin double wide, so they'll take on Scandal at 2:30. We'll have coverage for you here tomorrow on ESPN3. Same score on both sides. Probably didn't expect that going in for it to be as lopsided as it was on both sides of the semifinal bracket, especially the Washington-Seattle game on the bottom.
You know, Austin Showdown and Seattle Riot both were unbeaten here at Nationals. Both had played really, really well, so it absolutely is surprising. The finals matchup pits San Francisco against Washington, D.C. Those two teams have not met since the U.S. Open Championship game in Raleigh. That was a 15-12 Fury win. You know, there are dynasties, and then there's what San Francisco's Fury has done in women's ultimate. Tomorrow they'll be going for their 8th straight national championship.
There's Josh McCarthy, the head coach for Boston, in that gray shirt walking off the field. Very surprising to see Josh McCarthy with a short sleeve shirt today. The last couple days, even when it was hot out, going with the long sleeves. His signature look.
Will Neff getting ready to pull. We talked about Tim Garrett winning the Callahan at Florida, and George Stubbs won the Callahan for Harvard. Will Neff won the Callahan as well at Michigan. Product of Amherst Regional High School, one of the best high school programs consistently in the country. Bunch of Amherst guys on this Boston Ironside squad. You know, when you think of youth ultimate in the United States, you think of Amherst, you think of Paideia in Atlanta, and you think of the scene all throughout Seattle and the community that they've built, fostering the sport in elementary schools and middle schools. It's why there have been so many great players to come from the Pacific Northwest, as they start very early and make it a natural part of life.
Yeah, a big push forward at the youth level, and from all the events that we've been to over the course of the summer, youth clinics have been a part of that youth involvement in the game to really grow the sport, and it has tremendously even within the last calendar year.
Sockey's making some really nice cuts down the field. They're picking their spot, though, in a fantastic defensive play by Jack Hatchett. He just showed a different gear in the speed department.
He's trailing, and all of a sudden, about 15 yards out, he just takes control of that pursuit.
A different kind of speed there by Hatchett. Hammer.
Over the top, nice 30-yard throw.
That was a hammer that made Sockeye pay for a downfield poach.
Simmons with the disc, forced away.
There's not much wind right now, so most of these guys with big hammers won't have to contend with the wind, which is usually the best defender for a hammer.
You can't push into him. You can't push in. Put yourself somewhere, but not into him.
Hey, we're girls!
Here's another chance for Boston's defense, Mike. It hasn't converted a D into a score yet. Interesting to note, George Stubbs playing on the D point for Boston.
Chance for a greatest on a big tumble from Christian Foster going out of bounds, trying to pull in that hammer. Off the turn, sideline Huck. And it's too wide as Sakai went for an aggressive play right after the turnover.
Well, there might have been a foul, but look at this hustle, trying to go for the greatest. There was no chance he was going to get that inbounds. That signage is about 15 feet from the sideline down there, and he still almost toppled over it.
Well, the folks at USA Ultimate are happy. They don't have to replace it after an acrobatic dive from Christian Feister.
So there was no foul call on that long huck try off the turn, and there's the first break of the day for Boston.
Pure turn, Foster finds Russell Wallach.
It was really interesting to talk to Russell Wallach during the US Open. A guy who understands the challenge of playing defense at the elite level. You know, you only get very few opportunities because you can play perfect defense, and the reality is the offense has the advantage. So he's the type of guy, he thrives against thrives when he goes against some of the best players in the game. He wants to be the guy that will guard the other team's most explosive player. And he knows that, you know, maybe 8 times out of 9, 9 times out of 10, he gets beat. But the one time he comes up successful, that could be the difference in the game for his team.
Well, right now, one break proving large, 7-6, as these two teams have essentially traded scores here in the first half. Neither team showing a propensity to break away just yet.
Now we're back on serve. One break for each defense so far in the first half. Probably a little more peaceful of a weekend for Josh McCarthy than at the US Open, when he and his wife were celebrating their 10th anniversary that weekend. We're the best team in pool play, but we're knocked off by Revolver in a UniFirst Point Classic in the championship. Josh's wife, an ultimate player and coach as well. Josh still coaches Harvard collegiately, and his wife coaches the Tufts women's team in the Boston area.
And that made a lot more sense to us when we saw him wearing a Tufts hat yesterday. Sakai wants to go deep again. They do. It's just short of the goal line.
And Seth Reinhardt looks to be hurt.
We do have an injury on the play.
He went down really hard.
Seth Reinhardt shaken up for Ironside.
Believe it's the first game of the tournament for both of these teams on turf. So it's just a different landing, and you could see the face plant from Reinhardt. Might have some of those rubber pellets in his mouth.
The knee comes down first, but watch the chin. So he's replaced by Jamie Quella on the injury substitution. And Matt Rader controls it after the Huck reception. And that's a Sakai score. Joe Sefton with the catch. The 27-year-old puts us even at 7.
Another throw that wasn't exactly right on the money. I mean, that wasn't an easy catch. But throughout this first half, Seattle's made a bunch of tough catches. Throw a little bit behind him. At this level, you expect him to make that play. And still a better catch than throw right there. Seattle brings it back on serve. You know, if Boston scores here to go up 8-7.5, it would be disingenuous to say Boston is leading, because basically that would mean the game is tied.
Right.
Seattle will get the disc to start the second half. And Sakai uses its final timeout of the first half before this double half point.
Winner of this game moves on to the championship tomorrow. And for the USA Ultimate National Championship, returning to Texas after the last 13 years down in Sarasota, Florida, the last leg of the Triple Crown Tour, which has been a new structure for USA Ultimate, very similar to what you'll see in European soccer, and impacts on the Triple Crown Tour for next year in this year's tournament here this weekend in Frisco.
Yeah, it was a really interesting spectacle yesterday at the FC Dallas complex after the quarterfinal round was complete, because the teams that lost in the quarterfinals, their championship dreams in 2013 were squashed. But at the same time, they still had work to do, which is a tough dynamic, battling for the elusive spots in the pro flight, coveted positions, because you want to be part of that highest tier, which gives you access to the best tournaments in 2014. So just, you know, it's a hard psychological thing to quantify because you're crushed. You've worked all season long. Your belief is that you're headed for a national championship, and all of a sudden that's gone, and yet you need to play another top-level team to try to battle for best positioning next year.
And on top of that, yesterday's play featured a lightning delay, which pushed things back. So the last matches ended up starting anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes later. And Thursday and Friday, long days to begin with. So teams really had to find the energy to get up for what were significant games at the end of a long 2 days.
You know, a team like Austin Double-Wide absolutely crushed after their 15-13 loss to Denver's Johnny Bravo. And then about 20 minutes, half an hour later, they had to take the field against Chicago Machine, another team that had semifinal aspirations, but was knocked off by Seattle Sockeye in one semifinal. Machine was the 5th overall seed from Chicago coming into this national championship event.
This way, I went this way too.
Double-Wide ended up winning that game in a Universe Point Classic, a Universe Point that lasted about 45 minutes or so, it seemed.
Pretty good.
Wasn't quite that long, but it felt that way. There were a lot of turnovers, a lot of opportunities for both teams as they shot it deep.
An Ironside turn. Sockeye with a chance to take half. That's right on the goal line.
Lead cost with the turn with the defense.
This would be big. Remember, Sockeye receives serve to start the second half, and it's Sockeye taking half 8-7 on the goal from Joe Sefton.
Tim Garrett finds Joe Sefton in the end zone.
That's a significant turn there for Ironside.
Yeah, just a bad throw, miscommunication.
Ironside 7.
Koss came up with the interception, and then Sefton, an unspectacular but a very significant goal here for Seattle. And Tim Garrett with a nice high release backhand to finish the first half.
So back and forth they went in the first half, and Seattle carries a little bit of momentum as we get set for halftime here at Frisco.
After 3 days of competition.
Let's go down to the sideline. Seattle coach Roger Kravs. Well, a bit of a nice swing for you there to take it into half. A good turn, and you're able to take the momentum, and you'll get the dish to start the second. What were your impressions on the first half?
You know, it's going to be a tight game the whole way through. Adversity is the message. We have to be able to play through it and play as a team and keep doing what we do.
Any update on Jacob Spidell? Is he all right?
He's working through cramping right now, but I think he'll be okay.
What were your thoughts on your offense creating some turnovers from their defense after they gave it away?
We've been stressing that all season long, and it's working out.
What's it like to be a coach of Sockeye for the first time here at Nationals?
It's a pleasure. It's been a while since I was with them, so it's good times.
All right, Roger, thanks, and good luck in the second half.
Thank you.
Roger Kravs, head coach of Seattle Sockeye. They lead 8-7. They take half. When we come back to Frisco, a look at the first half highlights in men's semifinal number 1. Halftime in men's semifinal action here in Frisco at the USA Ultimate National Championships in Frisco, Texas. Seattle 8, Boston 7. That's the USA Ultimate World Games team here in Frisco, assembling for a nice photo. And so Seattle takes half 8-7. It was looking like Ironside had that last possession. They could take half 8-7. It basically would have been a tie at that point because it was Sockeye to receive serve in the second half. Now after a turn from Ironside, things are a little bit different.
Well, that's a big turning point to end the half. Sockeye getting the score as Garrett flipped it in for Seattle. And now, like a tennis player, once you get a break, you have to cement it by holding serve. Seattle will receive the dish to start the second half. A pivotal point because neither team is led by more than one this entire game. game, Seattle will have an opportunity to take the first 2-point lead.
Scoring in this first half basically like a really hotly contested tennis match as they went back and forth each way.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this was one of the more exciting plays right off the bat. Alex Capinos got it deep, and then the flip in for Danny Clark, the easy score. But for the most part, there weren't a ton of spectacular catches in this half. Of course, we're going to see the best ones absorbing the contact for the score there as Wallach nearly got the D. But, you know, not as many deep shots as, frankly, I expected coming in between these two teams that like to shoot it deep, but they're both also very intelligent teams, and they only want to go deep when the matchup is there.
Now, since neither team was very aggressive in the first half, do you think it stays that way second half, or that one side's going to have to switch it up to try and get a little bit of an advantage?
I think it opens up a little bit naturally as the teams become more comfortable. And if Boston, you know, falls down by a couple points, another break perhaps, then Ironside will need to take a few more risks and try to get Clark, Capinos, Pryal, and Stubbs more prominently involved in sending the disc deep. But right now, I think Josh McCarthy's telling his team, so far so good. We're right in this neck and neck. We've got a perfect opportunity to get to the finals.
Seattle Sockeye with the lead. They'll receive the pull when we come back to Frisco. Second half action coming up next. Tight action here in the first half of men's semifinal number 1. Of course, more action coming your way later as we'll see San Francisco and Denver. But Seattle right now with the 8-7 lead over Boston. They picked up a turn late in the first half, are able to take half, and their scoring has been a little bit clustered.
Yeah, balanced scoring from both teams. A couple goals for Murray, Holt, and Sefton. Castine had perhaps the catch of the half for Sockeye, going up high to pull it down. And for Boston, you know, George Stubbs' name not on that list. He hasn't played a huge factor in the first half, in part because, you know, Ironside typically doesn't need to make him a showcase superstar. He is a superstar, but their offense traditionally has been very balanced. Sometimes late in tight games is when they will use George Stubbs a little bit more aggressively.
Josh McCarthy is the head coach of Boston Ironside. He stands by now on the sideline. And Josh, first half, that was a crucial turn there as Sockeye took half. What did you say to your team in the huddle?
Well, you know, we talked about kind of going back to Ultimate 101, throwing to open guys. Simple things, you know, continuing to hold the force. I think the defensive pressure, frankly, has been pretty good on those guys. Seattle's made a number of really athletic plays. We're there, we're close. We got to keep that defensive pressure up, and, you know, you can't go 1 for 4 in the second half if we get 4 opportunities. I mean, that's not going to win the game. We're going to have to get a couple breaks. The O's going to have to continue to play crisp.
Yeah, Josh, I know you were frustrated at times yesterday by your defense's ability to capitalize on turnovers it created. Do you make any adjustments at all, or do you assume that eventually it'll click?
No, well, we talked about cutting through the poaches. We talked about hitting the open guy. I mean, we've had a couple of throws that are really forces instead of, you know, fundamental running our offense. Even with the poach, we can bring a guy back, we can hit a dump, and then our defensive players really need to cut aggressively. They've been looking a little tentative out there, and look, this is the time where you got to give it your all. Seattle is bringing some tight defense, and we're going to have to rise to that challenge.
All right, Josh, thanks so much. Good luck in the second half.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Josh McCarthy, head coach of Boston Ironside. His team will pull when we come back for second half action here in Frisco.
This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot.
West Coast versus East Coast here in the men's semifinal between Seattle Sockeye and Boston Ironside, along with former Wake Forest Ultimate captain Evan Lepler. Mike Cousins, thanks for being with us here on a beautiful evening in Frisco, Texas. Ironside a turn right at the half, so they go down 8-7. And now they get set to pull as Will Neff, the former Callahan Award winner, will let it fly to let things go here. Josh McCarthy, Boston Ironside's coach, just joined us and said it's going to be important for his team after they get turns here on this defensive line to cut harder and be a little bit more aggressive on offense if they want to come back and pick up a win to move on to the finals tomorrow.
Yeah, and I don't think he wants any tactical adjustments. I think he has a lot of confidence in his guys. He just knows they're in a little bit of a rut right now, but you know, the defensive line has been one of the best in all of the Ultimate scene throughout the season. Josh McCarthy always thoughtful, and you know, one thing to note here, the sun has just drifted below the horizon, so not really an issue for the players anymore, but it's creating a gorgeous sunset in the distance.
Matt Rader shaking up. He'll stay on, though.
Here comes Sakai, a very important defensive possession here for Boston. Up line ahead to Phil Murray. He picked up a couple goals first half. He hucks end zone, and that disc falls incomplete. Looked like it was intended for Chris Kasedner. Foul called.
Couple things to wonder about here. Would he have come down in bounds?
So I can't contact.
Looked like his first foot came out of bounds, but you can be forced out because of a foul. That disc got tacoed a little bit, almost bent in half.
No contest on the foul. The force out foul, that's in the end zone.
Yeah, that's a goal. The force out foul creates a Seattle score. That's a rule that used to be in the NFL. They used to let the referees decide if you're forced out by a defender, it's a catch. They changed that in the NFL. Now you need to have both feet in regardless. But in Ultimate, the force-out rule is still very much in effect. And as you see right here, Seattle takes the first multi-score lead of the game.
As Kasedner goes toward the corner of the end zone, where his foot lands, it's easy to infer that had there not been contact, he probably does come down at least on the line.
Well, if he's on the line, he's out of bounds, but he probably would have come down inside the line. And, you know, we're talking about the foul, we're talking about the force-out rule, we're talking about the double-team defense. That was an unbelievable catch by Kasedner. If not for the foul, he probably would have hauled it in, tapping his foot. Of course, you don't know, but that's the price you pay for the foul if you're Boston. Every offensive point is critical here for Ironside. Kristen Foster and some of the defensive players look on. Reed Koss will pull for Sakai. There was actually a mistake in the official stat sheets. And at one point they had listed Reed Koss with 13 Ds in the tournament with nobody else having more than 5. It was a typo. He had 5 Ds. He tied for the tournament lead, but you know, having 3 times as many Ds than anybody else, it certainly would put him in a league of his own.
That 8-foot wingspan really helps.
Looking for Stubbs.
Stubbs with breakaway speed. Ironside, the quick answer. Stubbs, we didn't call his name much in the first half. An impact here to get the second half going for Boston.
A nice shot from Peter Pryal and a well-designed play right off the pull. Pryal, the quick catch, look, made eye contact with Stubbs and he was off and nobody's gonna catch him. Bo Kittredge might be the only guy in Ultimate who would dare to try to catch Stubbs in that scenario.
Sam Harkness was running full stride with Stubbs and still couldn't catch him. About 5 yards of separation by the time that play was over.
So we'll see if the Ironside team decides to try to implement Stubbs a little bit more in the deep game. And we mentioned it at halftime, they've got other guys that they can count on, and they like to make Stubbs more of a role player, but he's got the superstar capability. And you know, he played 1 or 2 defensive points in the first half. We may see him on the field for another deep point or 2 if Josh McCarthy deems it necessary. The field's slightly narrower than a football field. Regular football field about 53 yards wide. Ultimate field 40 yards wide. From the back of the end zone to the other back of the end zone, it's 110. with 2 20-yard end zones bookending the playing field proper.
Will Neff to pull for Ironside. A break here would be big to bring it back to 9-9.
It's either been Neff or Malachek as the primary pullers. But Neff this time doesn't look like Malachek's on the field. Really impressed by how smooth Seattle's offense has been. There's 7 players moving in harmony together. Mentioned it before, but you know, you can't score a goal if your teammates didn't create space for you. You can't score a goal if your teammate doesn't throw it to you. So whoever scores the goal isn't necessarily the most important guy on that point. It's a great throw and go.
So, okay. So it really doesn't matter who said it. Yeah.
Coming wide. Gain about 30 yards on just 2 little upline cuts. There's a foul away from the disc, no contest.
Karlinski rotates it for Joe Sefton.
And an easy score.
Sockeye comes right back with the answer. 10-8, so they hold that 2-score lead. This is going to be an uphill battle this second half for Ironside.
Especially because Sockeye really hasn't shown any flaws offensively.
No, and that last drive was really a perfect example of their offense. Karlinski right across the goal line into the end zone for Sefton.
Josh McCarthy might say to his guys, we need to be a little bit more active with our marks. That was a little high release backhand to the break side. Once that throw gets past the mark, it's probably not going to be defended because the defender was on the other side, anticipating that the mark would hold the force, which he did not. And Sefton the beneficiary.
Reed Koss to pull for Sockeye.
Koss, the Western Washington alum. Only 6 feet tall, but you can see how sturdy he is. And a huge backhand pull.
It's just pure man-to-man defense for Seattle.
Sam Harkness guarding Stubbs again, and Stubbs has a couple steps.
Clark hangs it up. Stubbs grabs a rotating disc in the end zone. They do it again. Another hawk to George Stubbs. Ironside quickly right back down the field. Their defense doesn't rest much, but a nice play.
A risky defensive maneuver here by Sockeye. They were playing Stubbs underneath, expecting last back help. The help came, but it was far too late as Stubbs all alone for the score. Great effort by Harkness, giving up his body. Against some players, the threat of a layout, even if the defender doesn't have a chance for the disc, can make an impact, but not going to impact the Callahan Award winner and Team USA captain George Stubbs. We heard some fascinating stories about Stubbs' leadership down in Columbia. Just 24 years old, but a leader of a team of players mostly far older than he. And George Stubbs had a point in Columbia where he got beat. He was very frustrated, usually a very level-headed player, but he had an outburst of emotion. A timeout was called, and everybody in the huddle sort of thought that George would go off. And George got in the huddle and basically said, I love you guys. I can't believe we're here. This is the greatest thing ever.
That's why we play. That was a really good story,
and it set the
to hear
tone
about George Stubbs. But tomorrow, noon Eastern, 11 Central, it'll be Minneapolis and San Francisco playing for a mixed bracket championship. Minneapolis with a 15-13 win over Boston to earn its way there, and that'll get Championship Sunday started here in Frisco.
A quadruple header today, triple header coming up tomorrow.
Slam dunk finish on the score for Seattle.
Matt Rader hauled it in. Currently goes to Laverne College, Laverne University. He runs track, he throws the javelin, and he is a ridiculous athlete. And he looks like he could play a little basketball too.
Well, wearing the red and black, you think you ever watched Tony Gonzalez when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs do that?
That was his trademark.
Now this is the type of game perhaps we expected and didn't see in the first half, as both teams were rather conservative and traded scores. No breaks, and now Stubbs pulling in 2 hucks and Rader doing the same.
Yeah, they haven't really been dangerous throws though. You know, they've been, pretty sure things when it comes to the huck department. Seattle calling a timeout here, trying to keep the legs fresh and also realizing we're about 5 minutes away from the soft cap. Well, the throw made easier because of the fact that Boston was playing underneath. So the big left-handed slam made easier after Rader hauls it in. Ultimate's a fascinating chess match because if you try to take a little advantage and cut off those underneath throws, most of the top-level handlers feel really, really comfortable putting it to space and let their playmakers go to work. So, you can be impressed by the nature of that throw. It might have been 50 yards, but those are the throws that these top handlers really can make in their sleep.
Now that we've seen the last 3 scores come on giant hucks, what can the defenses do to try and change things up and prevent those scores?
Yeah, it sounds simple, but you just got to play better. You need to deny the deep cut, but try to be in the offensive player's pocket when they're going in, because you can't let them chew you up on the underneath cuts either. A defensive line here: Matt Sewell, Tim Garrett, Reed Koss, among others. I believe Adam Simon is out there. Tyler Kinley, one of the captains. Kinley played collegiately at Michigan, moved to Seattle.
Stubbs, who's been a huck recipient, gives to Capinos. Prowl on a short cut for Marquette. He wants end zone.
Was there a call or is it a score?
Late call.
Observers all looked at each other, but then the touchdown signal.
So Capinos from Prowl.
I think of Peter Prowl oftentimes as being more of a deep threat and a cutter, but he's made some really solid throws in this game. Prowl
Josh
to Marquette
on the assist.
And then Capinos. So Boston's doing what it needs to do with its offensive points, but sooner or later, Boston's going to need to go to work, and George Stubbs might need to start playing some defensive points. He's clearly been a downfield threat in the second half offensively, burning Harkness a couple times. Prowl had the first throw, and then the lefty Danny Clark. Southpaw for Stubbs in the score.
8 different players have now scored for Ironside out of their 10. And do you think that they're going to have to, as you said, maybe focus a little bit more on their superstars now that they trail?
Well, I mean, we've seen that in the second half. In the first half, only one guy, Danny Clark, had multiple goals, but they've gone to Stubbs a couple times. Capinos getting in on the act, his second goal of the game. And the thing I'm most curious about is at what point does Josh McCarthy use some of his offensive studs on the defensive line? That's the big question right now. Because not only do you need to get a stop, then you need to capitalize it with a score. Peter Pryl's playing this defensive point. He's out there guarding Matt Rader.
And we're just about a minute away from the soft cap going on.
Seth Reinhardt, who took a hard fall earlier at his neck snap, he's out there defensively. Matched up with Michael Caldwell, the Carleton alum, the longest tenured Sockeye player.
He got contact and a foul call.
The thing that just is so impressive about this Sockeye offense is
injury, no foul call.
It hasn't seemed rushed at all. You know, they seem in total control. They've had great spacing.
No foul call.
They've been able to break Ironside at will.
There was no foul. This was an injury timeout. And the injury in red, number 40, Adam Holt. Right there, he gets tripped up, running step for step with Teddy Brower-Jaris. So Reed Koss is the substitution for Sockeye in the red and black.
Good handler defense by Rusty Ingold-Smith, denying the swing. The horn sounds. So after this point, you'll add 2 to the higher score, and the game will be to that number. So if Seattle can punch it in, it'll be a game to 14. And that just makes it a little tougher for Boston. One fewer chance to try to get a break.
And it goes in and out of the hands of Reed Koss, who just came in. This is a big opportunity here for Boston.
That's the first turnover of the second half, I believe, for Sockeye. There's Wallach. Pryal, the offensive player, on the field for the defensive point. Brower-Jaris, certainly a capable offensive guy. Risky throw, but a tough sideline straddling catch.
Jack Hatchett checks it in.
Ironside might think about a timeout here if they get it close and don't have a clear shot.
Cross field, and it's teed away. Sockeye, after the turn, gets a huge layout.
We might look back at this one as the play of the game. An opportunity to even things up, and Matt Rader, full extension. That was a risky decision by Boston, and Rader makes him pay.
Rusty Ingold-Smith waited back on that. If he goes forward to try and get that, do you think he's got a better chance of bringing it in?
You certainly want to attack the disc, but you know, it's tough with those hammers. Just a tremendous, I think that's more of a defensive play by Rader than anything you can really fault Ingold-Smith on. Clearly he's shaken up a little bit. He's played a heck of a game. Just a great all-around athlete. Phil Murray replaced him. And Stubbs was the defender that came into the game because of the substitution the other way. So Stubbs is on the field now, playing defense on the handler, adjacent to Karlinski, who picked up the disc.
Stubbs in for Brandon Malachek. That's the third injury substitution on this point. 2 for Seattle, 1 for Boston. Koss looking end zone. Way wide open, and Joe Sefton high steps his way across the goal line for the Seattle goal.
What a turnaround on that point. From a hammer scoring possibility, and instead Koss just puts it to space, and the defender gave up. Sefton, he hasn't had an easier goal this weekend. This is what I mean, when the defender falls behind, and Wallach that time just gave up, raised the white flag. And we'll see Wallach raise the white flag, taking off his hat. And Sefton, looking like Deion Sanders. Prime time here at the National Championships of Ultimate.
Soft cap on, it's now game to 14. So the road becomes a lot easier to the finals here over the last few points for Seattle than it does for Boston. Our turning point right now still seems to be that turn at the end of the first half that allowed Seattle to take half 8-7.
That was huge, and this last one as well. You know, either of those mistakes not made by Boston, and they're right there. But now Ironside in a position where it needs to score 3, needs to score 4 to the next 5 points. Otherwise, Seattle will be back in the finals.
None of the celebrations from Seattle have been too showboaty, but they've certainly been the most active that we've seen from any team so far this weekend.
Well, they're playing with confidence and playing with a swagger, and it's, you know, not necessarily a cocky swagger, but they're feeling really good about how their offense is grooving. You get a defensive play like the one Matt Rader just made. Here's a impossible hammer made to look so easy by George Stubbs. That was unreal.
Stubbs to Peter Pryl. In a blink of an eye, and a score about 50 yards for Boston.
It's plays like that when you realize why George Stubbs is special. From his own side of midfield, this turned out to be a 50-yard hammer or so. We've seen George with a scoober. We've seen him with a lefty high-release backhand. There really is not a single tool that he doesn't have.
Look at Reed Koss on the mark. He didn't even expect that throw.
And he just saw the teammate Peter Pryl deep and realized, you know, why even bother with a backhand through traffic that might float too much. You know, most hammers have a tendency to float a ton, but George Stubbs puts the right amount of tilt and rotation on the disc where it tends to fall down quickly enough and doesn't float too much. Obviously, the defense had no chance there.
Stubbs has been impressive, but it's still Boston trailing by 1. And Seattle set to receive the pull here. Off the top of this game, we said we were going to look for Tim Garrett here for Sockeye to really stand out. Nobody in particular has been the one big star for Seattle.
Yeah, you know, we had to focus on somebody in the open. We focused on the guy who won the national title last year and won a national title in college, and that's Tim Garrett. But you're absolutely right, considering that, you know, this Sockeye team has been very, very balanced. Joe Sefton has played well. Sam Harkness has played well. Nate Castine had a bunch of great catches. Boston wants to do anything it can here to try to create a turnover.
Rusty Ingold-Smith disrupting the forward momentum from Chris Kosedner.
Hey, you're getting to that was completely right.
TMF on Boston.
TMF, a team misconduct foul.
All right, we're coming in 1.
They ruled it an intentional foul. You get 2 TMFs, nothing happens. A third, and you sacrifice field position. An unsportsmanlike play, oftentimes a deliberate foul or repeated fouling, and the observers do have the authority to issue TMFs, or in the rare case, you'll see a PMF, a personal misconduct foul. That is usually more for, you know, if a player took a swing at another player, he'd probably get tossed from the game in PMF fashion.
Rare this weekend even to have seen TMFs. The only other 2 that I saw were in pool play, 2 on 1 huddle, as a matter of fact, just for some unsavory language, which would go against the spirit of the game and the sportsmanship in the sport of ultimate. It's a game to 14 here with Seattle in possession and the lead.
And on that last one, Rusty sort of realized it was a bit of a reckless layout, did not take any exception to the TMF, was ready to move on and play through it. Look at this offense. Quick releases by Sockeye. That was beautiful.
An absolutely picture-perfect possession for the Fish. 1 goal away from moving on to the finals.
You think they want it? As close as Boston can get. Not close enough. Quick releases. The stall count didn't get to 2 on this possession. And it was Murray flipping it to Sefton for the score. And Seattle's 1 point away from returning to the finals.
So the 5th goal for Sefton, I suppose If there's anybody that's pulled away from the pack, it's been him.
He has been huge. But again, does he get the credit for that point? All he did was catch a wide open throw in the end zone. The quick passing and cutting, you really can't single out one guy. It's the teamwork and the spacing and all 7 guys in the O-line moving as one that has made this performance so remarkable from Seattle Sockeye. Sefton staying out there for this deep point.
Not really very surprising, though, because if they do get a turn, that gives them their best chance to win and put it away.
Again, Koss will pull. Garrett is out there. Sam Harkness has been one of the primary defenders all game long. Must score for Boston. And they'll start from the brick.
So the possession starts with Matt Rebholz and a vertical stack for Boston. Clark's the first cut going deep. They stay underneath with Jacob Taylor. They've had plenty of deep looks, none of them open.
Crucial offensive point, a must score for Ironside. Marquette has had a somewhat quiet second half.
Here's Taylor, and he flicks across the goal line. That's an Ironside score, rather efficient on that possession. Marquette with the emphatic conclusion to the possession. This was a confident possession here for Ironside. It started off, they looked downfield, whether it was Clark or Stubbs. Sockeye had that covered, and it seemed they were willing to give up those underneath routes.
Only so much you can do. Nice little give and go from Josh Marquette, the guy they call Cricket. And with a game to 14, Boston now needs back-to-back breaks. Winner of this game will face the winner of the second semifinal, which begins at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 Central here from Frisco, Texas. Johnny Bravo out of the Denver Boulder area, and the team that has won 2 national championships in the last 3 years, but knocked out in the finals in 2012, so unfinished business for San Francisco's Revolver.
As we looked at the Sockeye offensive line on that last possession, it'll be interesting to see who Josh McCarthy goes with here on this D point.
Looking out there, looks like Stubbs, Quella, Russell Wallach, one of the defensive captains. Peter Pryl is out there. There's Josh McCarthy. The final few words of wisdom. Timeout was called to give him a little bit more room. Will Neff also on the line for Boston. Seattle, you've got Lennon, Murray, Matt Rader, who's just been phenomenal in the second half.
Looks like Sefton as well.
Yeah, Karlinski, Sefton, Holt. Strong offensive line for Sockeye.
Biggest pull of the night for Neff and Boston.
We got Neff, Wallach, Stubbs, Pryl, Simmons, among others out there for Boston.
This possession, as with the last, very aggressive marks, and it's knocked away. The D for Jack Hatchett, and a chance to tie for Ironside.
Jack Hatchett with a D for Ironside.
Mike, both teams have 1 timeout left.
Pryl controls for Boston. Contact on the drop.
Looked like a foul and a strip, and everybody knows it.
You have 1.
Russell Wallach coming to grab it.
Clearly he had the stop rotation that got drilled and lost it. And Russell Wallach may have got hit in the heel, really had a sour look on his face. So Josh Marquette, an offensive threat, will check back in here with the disc.
Mitch.
Marquette, 34 years old.
All right.
One of the eldest members of this Ironside team. And yet still the guy that they want with the disc when the game's on the line.
Stubbs to Neff, back to Stubbs. That's to the end zone, but there looked like contact as Alex Simmons went down about 10 yards out of the goal line.
The question is, was Will Neff's defender impacted by the pick?
All right, we got a lot of picks involved. Guys, we got a lot of picks.
So Will, I think Will was over. You know what you think? That was 5 yards, right? It was within 10 and he had to slow down at any point.
If the pick call did not occur within 10 feet, they will wave it off. Defender needs to be within 10 feet of the offensive player. Can't see where Neff was. They're going to call it a goal. We are tied at 13. That's the first break of the second half for Boston. Just the second of the entire game. And we've got a double game point. Can we tell from this angle? Where was Will Neff? And he was all by himself anyways. That's a good call by the observers. You can see he was sort of alone when that pack of blue and red jerseys came together. If the pick does not impact the play, they will allow the continuation, which in this case was the game-tying score.
Well, Ironside has been on the comeback trail the entire second half. They're going to need a break again to pick up a win and move on to the finals.
Obviously, Will Neff is going to pull for Boston.
All right, everybody, fire up. We got a universe point. Stand up and show your thanks. Let's make some noise, crowd.
There's Murray. Matt Rader's out there. Karlinski, Lennon. On the offensive point, the names you'd expect.
For Boston, this has been reminiscent of the U.S. Open, the final against San Francisco. They came all the way back. Bo Kittredge skied for a score on game point.
Deep shot. No, sir.
Oh, and Ironside has a chance, but a foul on the throw all the way back about 60 yards.
The player's already high-fived, which makes you think
no contest.
No contest. That's Russell Wallach. Good to see him back out there.
Here for a second. Coming back. All right.
The disc is coming back, but it will be Sockey's disc. Very close. Matt Rader, the guy that Sockeye tries to isolate when the game matters most.
Where you were at the...
Now Mitch Dengler, the head observer, making sure that all the players are getting back to where they were at the time of the throw, as the disc stays with Seattle on game point.
Danny Karlinski, a 28-year-old Sockeye captain with the disc. Next score wins.
Tight marks all around for Boston. Seattle does have a timeout if they want to use it. 10 yards out.
Great recovery by Wallach. And Trial with a recovery as well. There was a foul not far from the disc. This is a big decision whether the stall count will reset here because it was rising.
I'm looking here.
Sefton currently in possession for Seattle.
There was no pushing, so observer ruling. There's no foul. There was no pushing motion, no pushing, right? No. All right, that's it. No foul. Okay? No, I don't think so. Foul. I missed that. 6.
Stall count will be at 6.
Coming 6. Coming.
So 4 seconds to get it away for Sefton.
And a timeout called.
Timeout called.
Just to let the drama build a little bit more. In case it wasn't interesting enough for you. Another 90 seconds to think about it.
Now the entire crowd on its feet here in Frisco. Next point wins. And a trip to the championship match to face either Revolver from San Francisco, Johnny Bravo from Denver. Again, we mentioned for Boston Ironside, they were in the similar spot of the U.S. Open, did not pull it out, and they'll need a big defensive stand here to try and get even a chance to win.
Well, you remember they pulled out a very tight game in the semifinals at the U.S. Open against Ring, and then lost in the championship game to San Francisco's Revolver. In a nearby field, actually Revolver is standing on the track, playing catch, starting to loosen up just outside the playing field here in Frisco. About 8 yards from the goal line. The Sockeye offense sets, and then the defense has 20 seconds to match up. Everybody needs to be still, and nobody can move until the disc is tapped in. If somebody moves early, a violation could be called. Sideline communication is incredibly important here for a possible strike call.
I remember stalling at 6.
Sefton with the disc.
5 goals for him today.
Resets the stall count with a dump. A foul called, and it looks like Jamie Quella accepts the call. Did he get the arm? Ooh, maybe got the body.
That was close. Disc with Reed Koss.
Double dodge!
Now about 15 yards from the goal line.
Vertical stack for Seattle.
Josh McCarthy, probably as nervous as he's ever been.
Seattle feet away from a trip to the finals. Sockeye will play tomorrow for a championship. Matt Rader, the final grab, sending Ironside a sinking ship for the second straight time.
Sockeye 14, Ironside 13.
The 6th straight year that Ironside has made the semis of the finals. It'll be the 6th straight year that Boston heads back to Northeast without a championship. A great throw from Chris Kasednar, putting it to all the space he had. It's a basic drill where you want to throw it to the front cone. Stubbs knew he had no shot. If he throws that a little bit behind him, Stubbs may be able to make an incredible layout, but on Universe Point, the game winner, Kasednar to Rader, and Seattle Sockeye, seeded 7th in the tournament, will play in the final 2 on Sunday.
That's our Discraft Ultra Star play of the game. 14-13 the final as Seattle picks up the win over Boston. When we come back, we'll talk to the winners and wrap things up here in men's semifinal number 1. Seattle will play tomorrow for a title. The USA Ultimate National Championships are presented by the Discraft UltraStar 175 Sport Disc, the official championship disc of USA Ultimate since 1991. The Triple Crown Tour, Ultimate's highest level of competition. Everyone's invited. USA Ultimate, the national governing body for the sport of Ultimate in the United States. To find out more about the sport of Ultimate or where to play in your community, visit www.usaultimate.org. Seattle Sockeye sinks Boston Ironside 14-13, and it's Seattle on to the finals tomorrow to play for USA Ultimate National Championship back in Frisco, Texas. And having quite a finish to that game, Boston Ironside climbing back but not able to finish it out, and Seattle picks up a thrilling win.
Yeah, certainly at halftime we may have talked that the game lacked excitement. Not so in the second half. The Seattle offense was pure the entire game, and that's why Sockeyes headed to the finals.
Sockeyes' Joe Sefton joins us now on the sideline. You finished with 5 goals today. A really nice game for you. What did you do to help your handlers find you in the end zone?
Oh, man, just keep working with my teammates, just creating space for each other. This turf is crazy fast, so we're all cutting at once, and then we give each other space, and we all play well.
Joe, from the Pro Flight finale back in early September, this team was not clicking on all cylinders. What mainly changed between then and now to have you in the finals here at the club championships?
Oh, man, time. We worked super hard as a team. Got a ton of players back, Matt Rader, Phil Murray, Mario, Vero, all kinds. Got a ton of players back and a ton of hard work at practice. It's helped us, man.
What was your focus coming from your head coach, Roger Crafts, in the second half there, considering it was only a 1-score game?
Intensity, focus, energy. Just bring more energy to the other team. Being louder, just trying harder, man. That's all season long, just building intensity, bringing more energy than everyone else.
And now you're in the championship game. Nobody can take that away from you. Give us the preview of this next game from your perspective. What are your thoughts on Revolver and Johnny Bravo? Do you have a preference on who you face?
Either would be a privilege. Revolver is the best team in the last half-decade. Bravo has a ton of crazy good athletes, man. Either one.
Well, Joe Sefton, thanks for the time and congratulations on a win. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks. Hi, Mom.
Joe Sefton very happy, and that's very interesting to hear him say it'd be a privilege to face either Revolver or Johnny Bravo, Denver or San Francisco. So that's who they'll face tomorrow. Coming up, we've got San Francisco and Denver. Interesting to hear that. I think it's really emblematic of the way that Ultimate is played, the spirit of these competitors. A privilege to play either of those teams. Certainly won't be an easy one.
Well, he knows no matter who they play, it won't be easy. But if they have the offensive teamwork tomorrow that they displayed today, Sockeye could be the best team here in Frisco. An unbelievable display from the offense that just didn't make very many mistakes. And when they made one, up 13-12 to tie it at 13s, they took care of business on that last point. A disappointing finish for Boston Ironside. So close again. But Seattle, a team that was knocked out in quarters last year, tomorrow will play for its first championship since 2007. It's been 6 years since they won a title, and that's a long wait for the Pacific Northwest.
Battling from Thursday and now on to Sunday, Sockeye will play for a title tomorrow here in Frisco. So for Evan Lepler, I'm Mike Cousins saying so long from Frisco ISD Stadium in Frisco, Texas, where the final score is Seattle 14 and Boston 13. To watch this entire game on replay, log on to WatchESPN.com or download the Watch ESPN app. We thank you for joining us. This has been a presentation of ESPN.